my blood, and I will die and kill for him if necessary.
It's all about that warfare, boy. Back up, It's all about that warfare, boy. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Take ground. Now this ain't no movement, this a takedown. We will not be moved or intimidated. We ain't the type. You got a problem? Tell them cross the fucking line. My niggas ain't polite. Soldiers to the left and right. I die for every man body. Before I be a coward, I'd rather be a dead body. This will be my kingdom when the hour pass. You can either get with it or get flipped like an hourglass. We live by honor and no excuse. Just send the prayer up to the Lord. I told him to let all the terrorists loose. Hold your tongue or get rebuked, cause you made a truce. With a race to make merchandise, how to buy abuse. Scared of who? You got your gun, then pull it. Me and my niggas start to argue, it's about who gon' bite the bullet. It gon' take round. Opponents better move slow. Attack dog for this truth, nigga, cool y'all. Go to ground. It's all about that warfare, boy. Give ground. Back up. It's all about that warfare, boy. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Take ground. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Oh, thought you could cross us with no consequence, but you will pay dearly. You should've used your common sense. My zeal lit, that means you could never prevail. Hey, with a true sit, hey, with warriors 12. Be wise with them weapons, cause I promise. My nine just like my wife, she concealed, she modest. I know 2 things, a robber will not prosper. And any man harm me and my octave gon' meet the doc. Cause this life is warfare, it's not an easy walk. Been watching my people die so you can miss me with that love talk. My UPK soldiers, any man try to cross your path, make him regret it. What that mean? Fall on his ass. Comparing me to you really ain't no contest. Long live one West. Say what? Long live one West. This for those who thinking we ain't ready for. Tell them back up, I'm about to drop something heavy for. Go to ground. It's all about that warfare, boy.
Shalom. This is the Isupk. Started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. We are under the commanding General Yohana. It is not about Isupk. You are not in the truth. This is the Tuesday night Brotherhood class. I want to say Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah to all the brothers. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah to all the sisters out there. Tonight's class, I want to go over training our children up in righteousness and in the truth. Now, what brought me to this topic was a while back, some particular stories came out about Baltimore City Public Schools. And it's been kind of swept under the rug. I mean, it was a hot topic for, a week or so, and then it kind of died out and dissipated. And every now and again, the story comes back up, and then it, leaves the spots quickly as it got here. And so what I love about the Isupk, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, meaning there's nowhere you can go or no subject that you could possibly bring up that a solution cannot be found in those scriptures. It's universal and it's practical, meaning you can put it into practical application. Right. And that's what I'm going to kind of get into when I get on these articles. But right now I'm going to start off with scripture, Matthew 12 and 46, and this was Christ, and he was speaking to the people, and you had some people in the crowd as he was teaching the masses, let him know that his mother and his family members were there desiring to speak with him. And, I guess like any form of fashion or any family member in some form of fashion, I guess people would look at members of your family and figure that you would, allow some sort of special concession, for them or an allowance when it comes to, this truth. And, but, Christ was just so, just so cold with it, so right to the point, right and direct. And this is like one of my favorite scriptures because he sort of defined what it is to be a brother, sister, or family member. And when I say brotherhood, it encompasses sisters as well, sisterhood. And now we're going to even extend that to the children as well, because it's easier to nurture your children with the scriptures than it is to unlearn bad behavior as an adult. It's a lot more difficult because you have to unlearn what you've already learned. And being as true for the hot second that I've been in it, I can see for some individual it proves to be quite difficult. So don't let the oppressor educate your children. And if you're not actively going into these scriptures and relaying, you're not actively participating or teaching them what you've learned, at least the milk scriptures anyway, the ones that are easily understood and easily digested, then you're passively allowing them to be educated by a Western society. And then you'll find yourself, having to, I guess, debate with your own children about where they get these concepts from and why do you believe what you believe. And the first thing that they teach every kid in the class is the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance, where you're pledging your loyalty to the flag and the republic for which it stands. Right. The same republic that enslaved our people, stripped us of our nationality, murdered our mothers and fathers, and did every unspeakable sort of acts and crimes against our people. And then later on, you teach the children of those people that you murdered and enslaved, you teach them to be like you, be like the oppressor, to love the oppressor, that everything the oppressor does must be all right. And that's what our children are growing up believing, even if on a subconscious level, even if they don't actively know it. If you remember, a few weeks back, I had a previous class where we brought out the Clark doll test. And so that was another test we brought out, and where Black children, by the time they were even 6 or 7, already knew that to be white was good and to be Black was evil. You go back and catch that previous class, and that was back in like 1940 or 50 or something like that. And then there was another article that I brought out the same day where present time, they said that by the time a child was 7, they already knew it was better to be white. So you can see during that time span, very little has changed psychologically when you allow the oppressor or the slave master to educate your children. Go ahead.
Like, so if I remember, the article said he was early 5.
Yes, 5. Yeah, it's the water. It was 5, but I knew it was really, really, really early. As soon as the child is able to grasp the concept, the concept between, to know that there's a difference between themselves and another children, they can already see, how the system benefits the other kid. But I'm going to get back to that scripture where Christ actually defines what it means to be a brother. So in order to extend that brotherhood to your children, we have to first see how does Christ differentiate between who's a brother and who's not. You got the scripture from brother? Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 12, verse 46. While he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him.
And again, like I, was saying previously, this is Christ, and he was, amongst the people teaching the masses, and in the crowd, I'm sure he was aware that they were there, but he kept on, teaching, just like we may do in the street corner. When we out there on the streets, you may see a relative, you might see a coworker, you might see somebody that but you don't, we don't make any special concessions. I mean, you may acknowledge them, but we're not going to stop delivering that truth. We're not going to stop dropping and trying to wake up our people to bring them up out of the condition that they're in. The best thing they can do if they really, love this and want to acknowledge is they can come over to the table and grab a flyer and get in this body. Right. So, that would be the most wonderful, beautiful thing you can do if you really want to be a brother or a friend. Go ahead, continue on.
Verse 47. Then one said unto him, Behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee.
So Christ, he basically is, he's teaching, and they're designed to speak with him, not being desiring or going without, not being able to, I guess, get his fully undivided time. Go ahead.
Verse 48. But he answered and said unto him that told him, Who is my mother, and who are my brethren?
So they approach him and saying, hey, here's your brethren and even your own mother. And we all know, black people, you can't say nothing about anybody's mother. Mother's like, the pinnacle above all. Father gets no love. It's all about mom. So here, they're trying, here's your mother, man. She's, trying to, get a word in edgewise. She's trying to, get your attention. And what did Christ do? Let's see here. Go ahead.
Verse 49, and he stretched forth his hand toward his disciples and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren.
Go ahead. So here's Christ. He's saying, okay, this is, you're presenting my physical, my mother here responsible for my birth, but here I'm defining who my brethren and who my family is. And he's, speaking about the disciples. And why is that? Go ahead.
Verse 50. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father.
Go read that again. Whoever do the what?
Whosoever shall do the will of my Father.
Let me pause right there, because it's something, even though the words are very small, is very important, because this portion is saying whoever shall do the will, not just profess it, not just claim it, as the Christians say, you just claim it, or say I catch caught the Holy Ghost, and whoever does the will of my Father, because everybody's a brother and sister when you go over to church. And how are you really doing the will of the Father? Because right here, this is Christ distinguishing between who is a brother and a sister and who is not. You have to do the will of your Father. So if you're sitting home, eating crab, shrimp, pork, and lobster, you just came from the, club, and, you were drunk just the night before on Saturday, you did all types of revelry, smoked weed, and then, so you can't then walk into the quote-unquote supposedly house of God and claim that everybody's a, brother and sister, but not according to Christ. You may be something, but not according to Christ. You're not a brother or sister. Let's go ahead and pick that back up.
Verse 50.
Go ahead. Take on.
For whosoever shall do the will of my Father, which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother.
All right, so right here, Christ broke it down quite flat, plain as day. To consider somebody to be your brother, you have to do the will of the Father, and that's going to go ahead.
So I have a question. I've had debates with Christians, and they use this scripture. So, I was just saying, maybe I can ask anybody.
Go ahead.
Christians have tried to pull this scripture and say, see, it doesn't matter about Israel. They'll say, see, whoever does the will of the Father, those are the brother, sister. I actually had a Christian pull this on me, and I mean, I did rebuttal, but I'm just trying to say, maybe anybody.
Yeah, sure.
How would they answer?
No sweat. For this, with the key word for me is at the beginning where it says for whosoever, because they use the same thing for John 3:16. For whosoever, love the world, God gave one begotten son. But if you go a few lines up, you know that Christ is talking to Israelites. It's that, same thing. So his audience is just there for Israelites. So that's the whosoever he's speaking about. And one thing I do know about Christians, the Bible has no contradictions. So Christ is not going to say one thing in one scripture and then contradict himself in another book. So we know that Christ gave the disciples orders. He said, go to the lost sheep of the house of, I have not come sent, but unto the lost sheep of Israel. And then he said, go not the way of the heathen, but, go to the lost sheep. That was his orders, not to go there, so he wouldn't contradict his own direction to his disciples. So he wasn't only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So who sent them? So we know the Most High, that's where he get his directions from. So he's doing the will of the Father. So that means not only does Christ have that directive, but the Most High is saying, I only sent you but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So in this passage, we can say without a doubt that the whosoever is only the lost sheep of the house of Israel, without a doubt. So, it's a precept upon precept. So it's, so when I see that whosoever, that's the first thing that clicks in my mind, that he's talking about Israel. So this brings me into what I wanted to get into tonight. So now we know that to be a brother or a sister, or in this family, you have to do the will of the Father. And one of the directives that you have is regarding your children. How extend that brotherhood to children. And it may not just be your own children, but little kids, sometime and ask questions as they begin to look around and observe things, and they may have a question here and there, and if they feel comfortable enough, they may come say, hey, what does this mean, or what is that? And so always we tend to look at things through the lens of the scriptures, and that's how let that be your guiding principle with every word you speak. It said, if any man speak, let him speak as an oracle of the Most High. And that's how we orient ourselves. That's how we direct ourselves. That's how we live our life on a daily basis. And so I want to get Proverbs 22:6. So we know to a brother is defined by to be a brother to Christ, or in this body as a brother and sister. You have to do the will of the Father. So let's find out what one of those commandments are, those laws, statutes, and commandments. You got that?
Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it.
So what they're talking about is that when you train a child up, as they grow, you're going to nurture them in the scriptures and the way that he should go. This Bible, these scriptures, this is your moral compass. This is where your morality comes from, in the direction you should go. So as you begin to traverse this thing called life, you're going to be faced with choices, that fork in the road, that multiple choice. If I go left, or I can go right. I can sleep with this whore, or I can, wait for the righteous sister and do it properly. So which direction should I take? Should I smoke and get high, or should I go do something more productive with my time? So the direction that the child goes is going to be dependent upon the way that they were trained up. And as they get older and older, those things will come back to remembrance. If they were directed in the way of righteousness, it will come up, and then they'll say, oh, I remember this scripture right here, So this is what the Most High wants me to do, and they will not depart from it. They'll never know what it is to get high, to smoke that weed. So that particular, those particular fig leaves, if you will, those other cultures from the other nations, while may have knowledge of it, they have no experience with it. They know it's something to be avoided. And this is the brotherhood that you want to extend to your children as they go up, and train them up in the proper ways, and they can avoid so many pitfalls that the oppressor has laid out for them. And again, what came up because here in Baltimore, they had a situation with the Baltimore City Public Schools, and this is directly what came to mind is that the children are not being trained up, and definitely we're allowing the oppressor to put the thoughts and ideas or how they should live into our children's minds. And it's directly affecting the choices they're making, decisions that they make because of what the oppressor is how he's educating them, because we're not doing it. You got the article grab? The article grab? Go ahead. You can pick either one. I'm gonna do them both, but you can start either one. All right. So here in Baltimore, they had a situation with the Baltimore City Public Schools. So if the kids are not learning reading, writing, arithmetic, politics, philosophy, geography, and these other things, which is pretty obvious that the system is woefully inadequate. So what is it that they're learning then? So you can see that result. They say a tree by the fruit that it bears. So if they even make it through the whole school program, you can see the fruit being displayed on every street corner, from Baltimore to Baja. You can see it being played out. So it's quite evident that we are being taught to emulate our oppressor. But however, because this land, this system of things this is not our kingdom, the consequences, there's no such thing as a fair justice system. Right. It's never gonna look in your favor. The education system is not gonna be balanced. You're not gonna get the same level of education as your oppressor, especially if you're dependent upon them to nurture your children. It's not going to happen. Let me start off with this article so we can get an idea of what was going on. This is not, although this is in Baltimore, it is by no means happening in just this city. I guarantee you, if you go anywhere where blacks, Hispanics, and even Native Americans depend upon the oppressor for their education, this is likely the scenario. Go ahead.
Several Baltimore schools report 0 students proficient in math and reading.
0. That means you have an entire school of probably over, the safe estimate, over 200 kids. This entire school, 0 proficient in math. That not one kid. So you have to ask yourself, when these kids graduate, what are they doing? They're getting them ready from the lack of education system to the penile system. And that is what they have planned for your kids. Go ahead.
Dive reading. 6 Baltimore city schools, 5 high schools, and 1 middle school were found to have not a single student who scored proficient in math, reading in 2016. Fox 45 News report.
All right, so this is in 2016. So those kids, they either graduated or they just left school altogether. So those kids are out there right now in the midst of a global pandemic where jobs are hard to come by. They have left the Baltimore City Public Schools with 0 proficiency in math or reading. What are those kids doing? Go ahead.
Like, sir, I don't know if they still do this, but I know at one time they would build prisons based off of, especially the Black Hispanic community, off the child's third grade reading scores. I don't know if that's still true for today, but I know that's how they used to do it.
Oh, wow.
So prisons were, they would take the third grade, especially in Black Hispanic communities, they would look at their third grade reading scores, and based off the ones that were not proficient, that's how many prison cells they would make.
Wow. I wouldn't put anything past the oppressor these days. I don't think they could, at this point, they're probably building as many prisons as they can afford. Because if you remember, they said that over 2 million, brothers and sisters are just filling the prison systems. And we know that a lot of prisons, it's on the stock market now, basically. You can invest in the prison. So we know that, this is the supply and demand. And right now they're creating the supply to meet the demand, for the prison system for basically cheap labor. Because we know under the Constitution, when they supposedly abolished slavery, that there was a caveat there, and it was except for when you committed a crime. So, if you've ever been right now, smoking, which you shouldn't smoke anyway, but let's say if you did smoke, and right now they've pretty much banned smoking around the buildings, whatever, and you can't be in so many feet near the entrance of a building to smoke. So they usually have paint a blue line or some other type of line denoting that you have to walk past this line to smoke. Well, if I say I banned smoking or I outlawed it, except if you walk past this blue line, then technically, not even technically, I didn't get rid of smoking. I just sort of gave the criteria or defined where you could smoke and how you can smoke. You can't do it in this area, you have to go over here. So the Constitution is the same way to say that they banned it is a play on words. The only thing they did was redefine the conditions under which slavery could exist. Go ahead.
It's like, sir, and I think often, I think you said this correct. You said that all the 13th Amendment did was just take slavery from private to public, right? So,
Right, that's what it answered. They basically enhanced private property to state property.
come on.
So instead of being owned by your slave, by a private slave master, now you're owned by the state.
By the state, exactly.
Now they raised the 13th, and then now they need a lot more for this, and now the state owns you, and now we can put you back to work.
Come on.
Plantation.
And let's not leave out the federal government, because the federal government is not going to let the state. The federal government is not going to let the state get all the money. So you got federal prisons as well, but majority of them are run by the state. Go ahead and finish that article for me.
One student interviewed by the station said he believes students aren't passing the state assessments because the material on the test is not covered in class.
And I don't doubt that, because we know that this particular oppressor is the most subtle piece of the field, subtile in his subterfuge. So yeah, the education isn't going to be adequate. So most likely, the curriculum is not set by our people. We're dependent on the oppressor to set the curriculum. So even if your kid got straight A's, most likely they're probably going to be deficient in some area. And I know this, having gone through the school system myself, and I know people who graduated and then tried to matriculate to college, and when they got to college to find out that even though they did really well in high school, what they learned, they were still deficient at the college level, and then they wind up having to take remedial courses just to, and what you mean by remedial courses is courses to learn basic things that you should have got in high school that you need in order to take the college level courses, and you don't get any credit for these courses either. They take your money. They take your money. So, I've seen firsthand, and I know that even if you do well, you're still not on par with the counterparts, the same people that you'll be competing with for the very limited jobs and resources that are there now. So, to make matters even worse, the system that we're sending our kids to isn't even giving them the basic education in basic math or reading. Yes, and that's not saying that you shouldn't send your kids to school, because you should. Follow the law. You don't want people coming to your house and you're not sending your kids to school. Send your kids to school, but what you want to do is you want to vaccinate your kids mentally with your own education program. You want to, go over your homework with the kids. Say, hey, what did you learn? What are they teaching? Make sure they're not there saluting the flag, and, learning all types of crap, like George Washington never lied and chopped down the cherry tree. You have to inoculate your kids from that nonsense, and then you basically cover them with the truth. And right here, we don't just talk about the Bible. We do the will. And my brother Uriah got an excellent program here in Isupk. So if you want to actually counteract the oppressive programming in the public school system, this is a great place to do that. So what's your class is Powernomics, right?
Common concerts, based off of one of them, Dr. Paul Anderson's book, and it's
Yes.
pretty much helping kids understand economic stuff that we didn't learn in school.
Yes.
And how to keep the money in your neighborhood black. That's the main goal, and to show kids how much money the oppressor is making off blacks on a daily basis. So it's pretty much to teach blacks, Hispanics, and Native kids how to keep the money, or how to support other people of your kind.
So definitely get in contact with that brother and sit down with your kids, because if you're not familiar with economics yourself, it'll be a great way to even learn some rudimentary things yourself. And economics is just a beautiful subject, because it's going to cover a wide variety of things, not just reading comprehension, mathematics, politics, social skills. It's going to cover. It covers a wide range of things, not in supply and demand. So that's a beautiful approach, because you can cover so many topics just under the umbrella of economics. I love it. So get in contact with that brother, and again, that universal practical knowledge that kids will be able to apply this. So when the oppressor, when they're in the oppressor school system, they know to say, hey, you know what? I learned about that already, and I know it's not exactly, what he's saying. It has, it sounds right, but it's a little bit off, because I was in the class by the Isupk. So that's what we want to do. Let me get Ephesians 6:1. So, and can you pick up is still someone in that article while you get that? Go ahead.
Data shows that despite maintaining one of the country's highest per pupil spending level, a recent study out of Harvard University found Baltimore to have the lowest rate of mobility out of poverty in the country.
So it's not about, it's not a money thing. Because honestly, if the oppressor really was interested in educating your children, they could do it overnight, and it wouldn't cost them any more money than what they're spending now. If they wanted to set up a voucher system where they would take the money that they claim they're already spending per pupil and allow the parent to take that same money and use it to send their child to any school. Of course, you would vet the school, vet the program, but take that same funding and allow them to send the kids to the school of their choice. So you're still spending the same money. It's not costing anything extra. The money that the oppressor claims that they're spending per pupil anyway. So allow the parent to say, hey, this school over here, I could possibly get my kids a quality, education, a lot more beneficial than what I'm now getting in the Baltimore City public school system, or any public school system run by the oppressor that's obviously not adequate, and just training your kids to go eventually into the prison system, basically, or to commit some other crime because they lack the necessary skills, and not just reading and writing, because your reading affects your comprehension. So if you have problems comprehending, then the information that you take in, it takes you longer to understand and use it. Education is just not about remembering things. It's about accumulating knowledge and then taking that knowledge and applying it to whatever problems that you may face to come up with new solutions. That's what it truly means to be educated. So you can, you see a problem or a situation based on what you already know, you can come up and you identify the problem, and then you can create a new solution on how you get over that hurdle. Not just simply regurgitate useless facts and, adding up numbers. It's a lot more than that, which is so beautiful about economics, because it takes into account the social aspect of it. So that's what I love about that. But so it's not just the money. So if they truly cared about your kids, that voucher system would probably be a lot better. I'm not saying you still shouldn't trust the oppressor to educate your kids, but at least it will put some power in the hands of the parents who had a vested interest in their kids' education, and it wouldn't cost anything. But of course, the oppressor, they don't really give, they don't care nothing about your kids. Despite what they say on TV about, we're sorry and we're gonna fix it, don't hold your breath on that. Let me pick up on that article.
A statistic tied directly to education as much as it is economic opportunity. Dive insight.
Go ahead.
The news in Baltimore again underscores the debate over the impact of funding on school quality. Some say the education level of adults and parents in the district is the greatest determinant of student achievement.
All right, so this tells you one thing right here. So they're saying that the education level of the parents is deficient as well. So what that should tell you right there, you should know that this is not a new problem. This is not a new phenomenon. It's been going on so long. You have the education system has deteriorated generation after generation. So now the parents has to rely on the oppressor to educate their kids, because they really can't help, because they don't have knowledge of the subjects themselves. So they're totally reliant on the oppressor to put something in their kids' brains, basically. And as an adult, it'll really be humbling, and probably most people aren't going to do it, to acknowledge that they don't understand the homework that their kids have brought home, or they have no knowledge of the subjects that their little small children are even learning in school to even attempt to help them. And that's the unwritten message in that article. Go ahead.
While other research has found a direct correlation between school funding and student graduation rates, and with Baltimore City public schools outspending both Howard and And with Baltimore City schools outspending both Howard and Montgomery counties in the state, both perennial exemplars in student achievement, questions loom over exactly where the money is going in Baltimore.
Exactly. So, right here, again, it's not a money issue, but the oppressor will never have your kids' best interests at heart. So right here, we can obviously see that, again, they're teaching your kids basically to self-destruct, because what else are they going, to do in this particular system where everything is based on money? So if you have no way of accumulating or collecting wealth, most people are going to turn to do illegal things just to provide for themselves, or because that's what they see everybody around them doing. It could be a follower of the leader situation. Or he's getting all the money, why can't I, get some money? Or he has a nice car, why can't I have a nice car? They have nice clothes or a nice house. I would like a nice house myself. So, and again, we're teaching our kids materialism, and that's where that desire comes from. Early with the Christmas and the Easter outfits, and you have get birthday presents and all those things. That's why the Most High said we're not to follow these things. And when you, year after year, put those influences on your kids, you're teaching them materialism, and then they have a desire to accumulate these meaningless things without the means to actually get them, at least not legally in this system. And so you're educating your kids in both ways. You're educating them to be unrighteous, to go against the Most High. So you're teaching them for the love of money. That's what you're teaching them, basically, in material objects. And then the oppressor is miseducating them in the system, undereducating them, if educating them at all, and pretty much setting them up to have a desire for material things that they can never quench, which is basically a recipe to disaster. Because you have some people who will actually go take the life of another brother just to accumulate stuff, be it clothing, be it a car, whatever it is. It'll never justify the taking of another life. You got the scripture for me?
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right.
So, not only are we to teach our children and train them up in the way they should go, but then the reciprocal of this is that the children obey your parents in the Lord, and this is right. So you can see the relationship here, where you're training the children up, and then the children have a directive from the Most High, where they listen to your parents, and this is right. So this is the relationship that's supposed to be going on. And so when you insert the oppressor between that, then things are going to go awry. The things are not going to result in the way they should be, where you're training the children up, and the children listen to the parents in the Lord and in the way they should go. So that's the relationship. That's the method by which you train the child up. They listen to the parents, and then the parents train the child up in the ways of righteousness. Go ahead.
And I've actually got arguments with the oppressor in the school system because it's an arrogance that they have, because they really believe in their mind that they know better than a parent, than a black parent.
Exactly.
They really believe it in their mind, especially when it comes to how some parents correct their children. I'm not talking about abuse, but I'm just saying how certain children may be corrected by their parents in a righteous manner. They really believe they know better, and they are quick to want to call services or quick to want to call. But I remember actually somebody made a point. They said, worry about your own kids. We wouldn't have mass shootings and stuff if you worried about your own kids. Instead of quickly calling on Tavon's mother, call on Mark's mom that he's making videos of how many people will shoot up at the school tomorrow.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, worry about your own kids.
Exactly.
But I'm so like, man, I've just seen it so many times where I've argued with the oppressor because they really think in their mind that they know how to better parent or better raise up our kids than we do. They are really convinced of that.
Delusional is what they are. Can you pull up Ecclesiasticus 40 and 28?
The Apocrypha.
So right here, not just, again, although it's in Baltimore, it's not specific to Baltimore. So we're in a place where we're dependent upon the oppressor for basically everything: food, clothing, shelter, and even the education of our children. But here, get to the UPK, come to the ISUPK, and learn what it truly means to be free. And that even includes how to educate your children in the ways of righteousness. Because as you begin to learn, it'll begin to filter down into everything that you do, your relationship with everyone around you. You know, you'll be able to see the differences based on the way you dress. Little kids ask you, hey, why you got those fringes on your pants? Or what's this? What is that? Star that you're wearing? And then that's an opportunity for you to educate. Well, it's not a star. It's the Magan Gawad, the shield. And then it's you can educate them. Well, this is our language, King David's seal, based on the holy tongue, the Lashon Kodash. And just the smallest of things can spark a conversation with a small child, just being curious. It could be something as small as why you have fringes on your pants, or what's that symbol, or what's that you have on your clothing. So again, training the child up, and little kids, they'll start to remember these things, and then they'll maybe ask the parent, probably could have questions of their own, and next thing you know, you have somebody hearing on what, which is the point. If you truly love your children and love the Most High, because you can't leave the education of your children to the oppressor, leave them to be miseducated and uneducated, and claim to still love them. But you got the script for me?
God.
Go ahead.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 4.
40.
41, chapter 40, verse 28. My son, lead not a beggar's life, for better it is to die than to beg.
Lead not a beggar's life, and that's what we're doing. We're as a people, we're begging, and I never saw it more prevalent than when this one of the plagues that the Lord is bringing out when it shut down the school system. Parents basically are trying to push their kids out the door because they don't want to deal with them at home. They actually are dependent upon the school system to be a babysitter. And it's a very sad thing where you don't even want to deal with your own kids at home. Go ahead.
So like you said, and what bothers me, this kind of has something to do with the scripture, is that every time we just had had a military brother get hurt by the cops.
Exactly.
We just had another black that just got killed. But what bothers me every time a black is killed, we still think that this government is going to do something. We go out and protest, and I'm like, the protest. What is 60 years of the civil rights movement taught us? Protesting, it's almost like we're still begging the oppressor to give us justice.
Exactly.
And it's like it's not that marching, protesting, going out, and guess what? They had the National Guard out there within 5 minutes. They couldn't do it with the Capitol.
Yeah.
The National Guard was right out there, tear gassing and everything.
Exactly.
Ready to establish law and order. And it just goes right with what you're saying. It's like, stop begging.
Exactly. And that's because since from the time when you start school, again, with that Pledge of Allegiance, and they teach the kids that in the Constitution that we're all created equal. Even during that time when that was written, we were enslaved, we were in chains. So just like when you were bringing up earlier about the whosoever, it said we are all created equal, endowed by a creator with certain inalienable rights, among the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which didn't apply to us. So that all men that they were talking about didn't apply to all men. And this whosoever, when you see that in the scriptures, it's only talking about Israelites. But again, back to what we were saying earlier about that brother, how did he get that mindset? Because he was trained up to believe he's an American citizen. And that's what a lot of us believe when, you initially get, pulled over by law enforcement, or we encounter the situation where we believe that we should have certain rights as an American citizen, and you can't do that. Well, in case you didn't know it already, that Constitution is just a piece of paper. And what's written on it is just words. The words written on a piece of paper by themselves have no authority. You don't get privileges and rights just because some words are on paper. You need power to enforce whatever was written. And that's where we are right now. We are without power. Go ahead.
Revelation 18:4 tells us to come out of her. The problem with our people is we fall into the custom culture of this nation. We think, just like you said, sir, we think we are included. Because we think we are included, because we are in this army, because we serve on his forces in the police force, we think we are privy to the same privileges that our white counterparts have, and we are not. You understand? And that brother found out that he was not privy to those same privileges that his white counterparts are, and they showed him that.
Exactly.
Even though they fired this police officer, in the next 3 months will be working in another police force in another county.
Exactly. That's usually what happens.
That's what happened.
They usually just get transferred to another, because especially if they've already made it through the academy, then they have police force training. So that means that the other department, they don't have to waste any money retraining the officer, basically. So they'll pick them, right up, as long as they're still able to drive and carry a gun, then they'll get picked up. Go ahead.
All of that, we love our veterans, we love our people in the armed forces and all of that. They showed you just how much that uniform counts. It's not the uniform, it's the skin of the uniform.
Exactly.
Under the uniform.
Exactly. Exactly.
Come.
We're never gonna be
Never
loved
been
by
the
this.
flag, and it's never been the uniform. It has only been the skin under the flag.
Exactly. So go ahead.
Oh, slack.
No, go ahead.
And I actually just read something, kind of what we're talking about, but I didn't know this. I didn't know that the Constitution gave the Second Amendment right to bear arms, which I just learned, so that whites could patrol and keep blacks and natives in their place. I just learned that. That was on the History Channel even said that the Constitution put that amendment there so that whites could keep blacks and natives in their oppressive state, like to patrol them,
Exactly.
and to make sure
Well,
that
that's where the police department originated from, the slave patrols. Go ahead.
So that the militia could come together and drop a percent. If slaves revolted with the Indians went bad or anything like that.
Come.
That's where they get the militias from. The militias were to control any slave revolt happened in this city or in this county or in that county or that county. You had the militia that would come together and operate as the police force.
And that's where you get the term off the reservation from. Because if they say, hey, you know what, you stay in this particular area. So you have the First Nations, the Native Americans, who basically used to migrate. Like here in Maryland, almost all the way up to New York, you had certain tribes that used to migrate all the way around the Susquehanna. Particular tribes, and some of them, they wiped them out of existence. They don't even exist anymore. So then you take that particular people who used to live in a certain way, and then you could try to contain them in a particular area. And when they leave that area, they use that as justification to murder them. With the slave patrols or the militia, like he was talking about, is basically just the groups of oppressors just running around getting guns and finding any excuse to murder, murder the 12 tribes. So now, modern day times, what the oppressor does, they join the police force. Go ahead.
1 second, sir. A good
the scriptures is saying it's better to die than to beg your oppressor. So we're gonna get go ahead. You got the next one. I'm gonna pick that back up. No, 40. Ecclesiastes 40 and 29.
Ecclesiastes chapter 40, verse 29. The life of him that dependeth on another man's table is not to be counted for our life.
So, and that's where we find ourselves right now. We are dead, so to speak. So, how do you breathe life back into a dead people? You come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments. And literally, that's in the scriptures. Literally, those dry bones, we are those dry bones. I'm asking, can they live? So, when you depend on your oppressor, or as it say, another man's table, so meaning to how you nourish yourself, as it say, food for thought, because the table is where you sit down to eat. Right? So when you can depend on another man's table for your sustenance, for your knowledge, for the things that make you be alive, i.e. Christian church, they can't teach you anything about God. That's the oppressor's religion. And you can see that, every holiday right before you tune into the Isupk, and we're going to give you a breakdown on where these holidays originate. And a lot of them are pagan customs, Babylonian customs, Egyptian customs, all amalgamated and pushed together to basically allow people to fulfill their lustful desires, basically. So you're not worshiping the Most High. These are things that the oppressor did, and we're following behind him, depending on him to supposedly lead us to the Most High. So the same way those things will never lead us to the Most High, letting the oppressor educate our children is never going to lead you to prosperity. You can't depend on another man's table and expect it to be counted for a life. So if you're not alive, then obviously you're dead or heading to it. Go ahead and pick that back up.
Ecclesiastes chapter 40, verse 29. The life of him that dependeth on another man's table is not to be counted for a life, for he polluteth himself with other men's meat. But a wise man well nurtured will beware thereof.
And that's the point that we're making right here, right now. We are polluted right now with the ideas and culture of another people who mean to murder us. So right now, we're telling you, beware. Send your kids to school, yes. Send them to school, but don't depend upon them to nourish your kids. Tell you the way you should beware. We're telling you to beware right now. That's the information you're passed on to kids. Go. Learn everything that they're teaching. Master the subject. Do well. But don't take it in or digest it hook, line, and sinker. You're going to look at it with the skeptical eye. So when they tell you that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, as a little kid, you're not going to grow up with that concept in your mind. Because then you'll know that Abraham Lincoln didn't care whether the slaves were free one way or another. And that's documented. You can read the letters where he said, he wrote himself that if he could keep the Union together by freeing the slaves, he would do it. Or if he could just keep the institution of slavery going, he would do that as well. It wasn't about you. It was about securing the nation, securing his people. That was his objective. It had nothing to do with gaining the slaves some sort of freedom. Go ahead.
And especially also, the myth that the Alamo, they were fighting for freedom. That was actually over slavery. That was actually, that's something they don't want to talk about in school.
Exactly.
That was actually for slavery because they wanted Texas to be a slave state.
Exactly.
And Mexico actually didn't want abolish slavery, but they tried to make it seem like those men were fighting for freedom and justice, fighting for slavery, and that's what it was. Defending the Alamo and Texas and all that. It was about slavery.
Exactly. But when you allow your children to be miseducated by the oppressor, so it gives them a false sense of who they are. They won't know that they are Israel. They'll grow up believing they're African American, which is a misnomer. We're not African, and you can darn sure know we're not American. If you were American, you would enjoy the rights and privileges of an American. So you can see that when the brother was just murdered with the veteran outfit on, served his country, and he thought surely this would allow me to a little bit of respect from one veteran or form of law enforcement protecting the nation to the local law enforcement. Sure, they would show me some sort of brotherhood and camaraderie, and for all his hard work, military, they gave him a bullet. It's 3 toys. Brother had 3. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So again, so then when the oppressor shows you that you're not American, then and it's so sad to see the look of surprise, or I can't believe this is happening to me, or I have rights. I have rights. Where if you train your child up in the ways of righteousness according to the Most High, then they know you can't trust the oppressor. You know that the words in that Constitution don't apply to you. So I know how to conduct myself properly because I know I'm dealing with a snake. And you can't trust this. It's in the snake's nature to bite you. So I'm not going to give them the excuse to take my life or maim me, beyond something that can't be repaired. Go ahead.
So, sir, and Officer McClellan, you brought up a great point. It really has nothing to do with the uniform. This has something to do with skin. Because I even saw, I don't know how long ago this was, but I saw on YouTube a cop pull over a white judge. The judge was white. And the judge gave the cop so much lip, said, "You better hurry up, buddy. You better know why. I'll be going in." The cop just, walked away and said, all right, Mr. So-and-so, get out of here, after, the cop did his research who he was, but the judge knew that his skin color and from his position, he knew that cop couldn't do much to him. Talked a lot of trash. I said a black judge wouldn't even get a word in.
Exactly.
Would have had him face down, so, and it's an excellent point you all were bringing out.
Exactly. So, again, you see the results of being educated or trained up by the oppressor and not in the ways of righteousness. You grow up with all types of ideas in your head about being African, then people wind up worshiping Egyptology. You got some people wind up being Buddhist, everything but an Israelite, which is the best thing that you did. Because I know when I found out I was an Israelite, it just sort of clicked. Everything made sense. It's like a light came on. Exactly. So allowing your children to be trained up by the oppressor, it's more difficult to undo that mind state. And so what you find is that once a mind has been indoctrinated for a long period of time, some people find it almost difficult to let go. And I've witnessed this where people are reading the scriptures, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but I believe it's in Romans. I think it was Romans or Matthew, where it says Christ from the seed of David. So we all know what seed is, not to be vulgar, but you know what seed is, and it's saying that he came from the lineage of this man. Christians will read that And the concept of immaculate conception is like, it is the indoctrination. They just can't let it go. Even though the words literally say that he was made of the seed of this man. So again, that's why you have to train your children up in the ways of righteousness when they're small. So when they actually get to the scriptures, they're not having to battle these false notions, and they can actually understand the scriptures when it's taught righteously by a priest and prophet of the Isupk, where you can truly get the proper breakdowns, and you won't be miseducated depending upon your oppressor for an education that's only going to lead you to death, as the scripture said. Man, I ain't even get halfway through the stuff I want to go. I'll say we'll pick it up next time. All right. So with that, I'm pass the class over to priest and officer Uriah.
Let's give that powerful priest another hand. That was a war. It was really good, really good. Great information. Hit home with me because, everybody knows I teach. So definitely hit home. Isupk security announcements. We are the Isupk out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commandant General Yohana. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or a sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves to the world. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or a sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother or sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, you can find this in Numbers 18:21 and Malachi 3:8-10. Means tenth in Hebrew and is pronounced Ma'asharah. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give. The upcoming Holy Convocation is starts next Saturday. So make sure that you have your flights in order. Make sure that you have everything that you need to in order because we have a great event for the Passover. It's on April 24th, but there's other events starting April 22nd. That's the Thursday, the Friday, April 23rd, and the Passover, April 24th. The first day is on first day of unleavened bread after that. So the slaughter of the lambs is on the April 22nd, so make sure that you have everything in order. Commander General Yohana has actually given us off, I think, for camp for even next week to make sure that everything is in order and that you are, this week, actually, camp for this week, to make sure that you have everything in order. Remind Akim and Akwathi to check on social media such as isupk.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for Isupk events and materials. If a brother wants to be a trooper in the school, then he is to start wearing all black, which includes black boots, shirts, pants, headband, or scarf. And with that, we're going to give one courtesy salute to the teacher. Men of Israel, Amani Shabbat, Amani, Barak, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shabbarakatah, Yam Yamatah, class dismissed.
Trying to find something to follow. Had loyalty, every man tried to borrow. Felt pain and a lot of sorrow. Got betrayed, so packed, I didn't even have my heart broke. Living confused, about to lose hope. Pops got me on the side of the road like a sideshow. Need an antidote before I croak. Now I'm setting fire, the risen man